should be live.
A real store to actually buy them.
Yeah, I miss those days. They were fun.
All right, let me go check my stream, but I think we are live.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go tweet out something, and then we can get started. Yep, I see all three of us. I see our lovely Knicks at Night background.
Oh my god, that background.
Hilarious.
Yeah, that is great. I love that.
Your prompts are so on point. I don't know how you do it. Like,
Bro,
I tried, and I
my
just, like,
prompt was
not
literally create an image of 3 people learning how to use Knicks titled Knicks at Night. That was like it.
Dude, I can never get it to do words. So I'm just like, don't put words in it. Like, don't even try. Like, I don't have time to sit here.
I don't know. It just hates me.
Oh, really?
That's really what it comes down to.
Listen, I will generate all the AI art for anyone that needs it because I have somehow repeatedly gotten this feedback that my prompts are so good and like I literally put 0 effort into any of it.
I don't get it, dude.
I'll have to ask for tips later.
Episode
Tips. Use Dylan's account.
number 1. What is Knicks? Meta. God, I hate that I have to type out literally all 4 E's in MetaMe on Twitter for. It's because Twitter's search is bad. It's like, oh, do you want all these other metas that you don't follow?
That's what happens with me. I get all the Dylans, and I'm like, there's literally one freaking Dylan that I follow, and if I try to tag you, it doesn't even come up.
Yeah, Meta, like I want to work at Twitter just for like a week to fix their search because it is so bad. Or at least just like change the sorting of the results to like favor people you follow. Like that would make it instantly better.
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty freaking obvious to me, but that's okay.
All right,
I'm not a brilliant Fing engineer. That's why I probably think of these things. Just kidding. All right.
And then
And I'm gonna send it out in my Discord as well. Next time I'll remember to put it as an event.
yeah, I accidentally fell asleep this afternoon. I would have been way more organized and we would have been on time, but I didn't wake up until like 4:40 and I was like, ah, shit.
Bro, when you asked, I was like, oh, they want to do this today. Okay, yeah, no, we're good. I got it. We're good. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, I was chilling.
Okay, let me get chat up. We've got Darren, Purplish, and Roasted in chat. You guys should be able to see and interact with chat through the backstage panel, like where it says manage.
Yeah, it gives me it on the right side. It's good.
Sweet. Can you guys hear both BG and Meta?
Hi. Hello.
Hey guys.
The Knicks mixer? Hell yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a drink. I'm down. Let's make that into a drink.
Meta is a
Let's
little
have Knicks
quiet.
mixers
I'm a
while
little
we're...
bit quiet. Okay. I can actually push me unless you still have
I think I can
push me
bump
down.
you up. Is he louder now, chat?
How about now? Is that better? Is this good? Are we happy now with the level of my voice? Cool.
You
Thanks,
got a
Roast.
thumbs up? All right. Well, let's get started, y'all. This is going to be a little unorganized because I have done 0 planning. But we've been talking about this a little bit the past couple weeks, but Meta and I have been wanting to learn Knicks. And our good friend BG from the Alt F4 stream is a Knicks expert and has been doing a ton of content around Knicks and working on setting up a Kickstart repo and a bunch of content around helping people get into Knicks. Yeah, so I'm just going to let the both of you introduce yourselves. Meta, if you would like to go first, even though I'm sure most of the people here know you.
Yeah, unfortunately. Hey guys, I'm MetaMe or Meta I'll occasionally, in frustration, say my first name. And most of you all have seen me in chat or, on my stream. And yeah, I mostly stream Rust and functional programming nonsense. Currently, that is OCaml. No thanks to Dylan. Okay, it's partly thanks to Dylan. But we've done a bunch of things on stream around Rust and OCaml. I write Clojure for my day job. So I basically just stay in the functional programming nerdery full time. And Nix just fits into that very well. I've known about Nix for a long time. I've been in the industry about 10 years. I just do backend now. I've only done backend for the last 5 years. I literally did not know most of the basic things that were happening when I was looking at Create Melange app for like this JavaScript nonsense that's happening now. And I'm completely removed from all of that. And it's pretty good, guys. I'll have to tell you, it's pretty good. But anyway, yeah. So thanks for having me. Looking forward to learning about Nix.
Awesome. And BG?
Hi, BG, Black Glasses from the Alta 4 stream. I do a lot of different things. I primarily focus on DevOps and platform engineering, which has been my main focus for the last few years. But I started out in front end and then moved to back end and then went to full stack and then got to a point where I was like, I think we can make this better, and kind of just fell in love with the developer experience, which was a big reason why I got into Nix. And even just like functional programming and stuff like that in general, honestly, Nix was a big entry point for me for that. But yeah, I focus on, again, like DevOps infrastructure. I also enjoy building, passion projects and stuff like that. I am probably the most novice FP programmer here. I wish I knew more. I really do. And like, it'll be funny because we'll probably go over Nix code and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's this. And I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. I've definitely, I think, learned a lot of Nix by just picking it up, and it's still kind of shared hand by hand, I think, a lot of this information. So yeah, I'm excited to be able to kind of grow my knowledge even around that from you guys. But yeah,
awesome. Maybe we'll get some OCaml collab at some point. Could you break down what exactly Nix is from like a 10,000 foot view?
Yeah. So I think the biggest misconception with Nix is that it's one thing, and it's actually not. It's got three main components to it, and each one of these components are really like a step, and then the next step, and then the next step. They all build off of each other. So when we talk about Nix, the first thing you're really going to think about is just the language itself. Nix is a language. It's not a general purpose language. It's a domain specific language. You can do a lot with Nix, which is awesome, but it's really focused on building software. You're not going to be like making HTTP servers with this or anything like that. It doesn't really even have a lot of that ability. And so the first start is really with the language and getting comfortable with it. The reason why we have a language is because the next component in that is the CLI tool, the package manager. And this is the Nix CLI. And you can kind of think of this dynamic as like a Docker file and the Docker command line that goes with it. You are describing a set of configuration in Nix, and then you parse that with the CLI tool and actually build the software with it. And so that's the second component. The two really work together. And then the third piece to that is Nix OS. Now what's funny is like I have tried putting out some YouTube content on Nix, and like I realized very quickly that if you have Nix alone in the title, it will disappear in the algorithm because it's just such a generic word, and it doesn't really do a good job of accurately describing these different elements. And so what people really attach to, I think more often than not, is Nix OS, the operating system. the thing to note about NixOS is like, yeah, it's an operating system. It's a Linux based. It's using the latest kernel, and it's really, if you've used like Arch Linux or even Alpine, things like that, it's meant to be very lightweight and performant. But it's really optional. You don't have to use Nix with NixOS, and you really solve, I think at least, using NixOS when you're like, all right, I want to guarantee that from like kernel level all the way up, drivers, any kind of that support is identical so that I have that same identical environment. But if you don't need that, then you don't really need the operating system. So for example, if you're on a Mac, you can run the language, right, with the CLI tool and build software, right? And you can do the same thing on other platforms, but NixOS gives you that control over the entire operating system. So you can describe like user setup, the binaries that are for those users, and like a much more extensive thing. So yeah, 3 parts: language, CLI tool, and operating system.
And now would you say, so from my perspective, and like the thing that has really drawn me to Nix, at least my naive kind of just watching you stream and seeing some coworkers use it, is like one of the frustrations, like I use Homebrew, right? I don't get anything fancy. I've played around with ASDF before, but like generally just Homebrew. I use .env quite a bit, or .direnv, excuse me, just to kind of help make some experiences better. And it can get pretty frustrating, especially like going from project to project, and maybe you have like system dependencies on projects, and sometimes Docker Compose doesn't play nice, or maybe Docker Compose isn't set up, and then you have like homebrew collisions and version mismatches, and it never just happens to be a great experience, and it's very frustrating. So that's like one piece that I'm very interested in Nixon, is like on a per project like basis, like just an easy way to change directories into my project and just have the stuff I need right there. The other thing I'm interested in Nix for is managing like my own developer environment. So things like my dot files, managing like my Starship RS prompt, my NeoVim settings, just like things of that nature. Is Nix like, does Nix solve both of those problems?
Yeah, it does. And I think the easiest way to look at it is Nix builds software. That's what it's meant to do. That's all it does. But because it has such a reproducible way of building software, it can build shells for you with the exact dependencies that you need. Right now, like, are you creating a dev environment to Nix? Honestly, it doesn't care, because Nix is completely like agnostic to that. It just has what's called a derivation, and that derivation is like your artifact. It can be anything. It can be a zip file, it can be an individual file, it can be a binary, it can be a whole slew of different things, right? And so I think when you take that into consideration, I think Nix just kind of starts to make more sense, where it's like, okay, well, if it can build the software for me, and then it can provide me a shell with those exact paths to that software, then I can have a reproducible environment. And so that becomes something that Nix can kind of provide out of the box. And they're called dev shells, are actually what they're called. And again, like Nix is really focused on, I think at least trying to be as lightweight as possible. So its job when creating your dev environment is really, I'm going to build all the software you want, and then I'm going to create you a shell that has all that software in it. So yeah, and you can do that from a project to like the developer experience full level. Yeah.
Cool. I want to ask one more question before I give Meta a chance to ask questions before we really get
Always
started here.
Mike. Always.
Yeah, gotta hog it over Meta. But what is I've read about Home Manager a little bit. How does that tie into the Nix ecosystem?
So you mentioned Homebrew earlier, right? Home Manager really isn't Homebrew. What it does is it provides you a user scope configuration and environment. So by default, Nix will configure the whole system as much as it can. When you're on a Mac, it uses something called Nix Darwin, and you can actually like change system level components if you want. And in Nix, they have support for that. But then you say like, all right, like, you know, maybe I have a bunch of users, maybe I have a bunch of different environments, you know, and I'd like to be able to just say like, just this user gets this setup. They don't, you know, have packages shared at the high level. They don't need any of those high level packages. And so Nix once again does its magic where it builds that user space for you in a shell, and then when you go into your user space, Home Manager basically executes that and gives you that entire environment. And one of the nice things about Home Manager, going back to Homebrew as well, is once you have that local environment, you can easily like add programs to your shell very quickly with Nix. And so this makes it so these become also like, you don't have to really think about, oh, I want to install something with Nix. You can just think of like, all right, well, I want to run something with Nix. And if it doesn't exist, it'll build it locally and it'll put it in that environment for you.
That's a good call, I think, for potentially getting like the mental model.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really focused on just the user shell, really.
Sweet. Well, Meta, do you have any questions here before we dive in?
Oh, I think you
hold on.
muted him.
All right, go ahead, Meta.
Like chaos muting. You just don't know who's going to get muted.
All right. Now,
There we go.
now I'm on.
Hi.
Hey, Dylan muted me. No, I mean, I don't know if that feedback came on stream. I was accidentally, well, it doesn't really matter what was happening, but it caused feedback. But I figured out why, so we're okay. Anyway, yeah, so I got a little distracted by the feedback and then trying to figure out the source of it. But
No worries.
yeah, I think I'm mostly in the same place as Dylan. Mostly interested. I would say, like, sure, it'd be great if I could make my own system and dev environment more reproducible. I think also the cursed way of dealing with C and C++ and similar things that don't have good package manager stories or anything like that, and everybody's just like, you suck because you don't know how to do these things. I would like to say that I don't suck anymore and I just use Nix for it, so go
Yeah,
fuck yourself.
sure.
So anyway,
That's valid. Okay,
Sweet.
cool. Yeah. Sounds good.
Meta, would you mind driving for most of this? Primarily so I can just manage OBS. And if I'm going to follow my own terminal off screen, but if I run into issues,
Sounds
we can
good.
bring my terminal up. Yeah, you want to share screen?
Yeah, let me do this. Okay, that looks fine. I guess we could expand a little
We
bit.
lost Meta's audio again.
The whole screen.
It's,
All right.
So what's happening is Twitch's guest star, anytime a new source comes on backstage, it like mutes the most previous person who spoke. So
Okay.
another
That
reason
is
why I'm going to
odd.
try to just manage OBS stuff and have Meta drive.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Let me get into my home. Okay.
Okay,
So
cool.
I'm currently home. What should I do? I don't have Nix installed. At least I don't remember installing Nix.
One
You bear
second.
with me. I forget things all the time. So.
Okay.
I have
If you just type
to-
in, oh,
1 second. I'm pushing this live. We should have Meta's. Yeah, there we go. Chat,
There
can
we
you
go.
see Meta's
Cool.
Meta screen?
yeah, it looks like I can see it at least.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
cool.
Okay, cool. So if you just type in Nix and then hit enter, we'll see if you have Nix. Okay, you don't have
we're
Nix.
good.
Fantastic. Awesome. Okay, so Nix it has a few different ways of having installs for it. There is the official way, which is if you go to your browser. Do you have browser in your source as well, or is it just your terminal?
I just have terminal, but I could change it to browser. I don't know how annoying it's going to be.
Okay, gotcha.
We can though. I think it would be nice to see, right?
Yeah,
I already opened up the Nix browser here, or Nix
Okay,
web
cool.
page. So that looks okay. All right.
Yep, perfect. So if you were just to hit the internet and be like, I want to install Nix, this is probably where you would start.
Right.
And so, yep, you click on download, and you're gonna
I know how to
notice
use websites sometimes, once in a while.
you're gonna notice that you're gonna have two options actually. You're gonna have Nix, the package manager, and then you're gonna have Nix OS, the Linux distribution.
Got it.
Right. So if you were courageous and wanted to jump into the actual operating system, this is how you could download it and create a VM with it, whatever.
Okay.
We're gonna do the Mac OS part now. I'm gonna go ahead and just like add this now because I feel like it'll be easier for us to do everything.
Yeah.
I do have a repo that I've been working on called kickstart.nix, and the reason why I bring it up is because it has some really nice steps in here that you can really just copy and paste from. It's got everything you need. So if you go to GitHub and then search, or I can give you the URL actually.
Okay.
Let me just give it to you.
Even better.
Yeah. There we go. I'll just drop it.
Yeah, you just better main chat even.
Yeah. There you go.
That's fine. Okay. Oh yeah, of course you effing opened it on the wrong window. All right, here we go. I bet. Okay, I can change the share. Wow, Twitch, you really know what you're doing. Okay. We're here.
Cool. So this is kickstart.nix. This is really meant to be a starting point for people who just want to like quickly get Nix up and running. Some sweet AI art.
You created. I was going to ask you. I was pretty sure you drew this yourself.
Oh, by hand.
It doesn't look
absolutely.
like AI art.
But we do include some guides in here for you to get started with, just in case if you are on like Mac OS or at least Nix OS, and there'll be Linux just by itself in the future. So if you click on Setup Mac OS for me, it's going to give you that same first URL, so you can copy
basically
this.
You made me do all this work, even though it's the same thing. No, I'm just kidding. Go
Well, there's other commands in there too. So you can we can grab the first command and just copy and paste it into your.
All right. So we're gonna switch back to terminal. I'm not gonna go back to the browser for a while here. So if you want to follow along at home, you just have to open the GitHub link that he already dropped in chat. This is what happens when you have an ultra-wide monitor. And
it looks like we actually have a Twitch staff member here that we can give feedback about guest star to. So far, it's so good. I've just had some random situations where both BG and Meta end up getting muted. I also have to push this back. There we go. Okay, there we go. Appreciate that, Juice Box.
So I can paste this, and we can press enter.
Yep.
And we're doing stuff.
So what's going to happen is it's going to give you a prompt, really. Now, I noticed that Bitmapper Twitch in chat is saying official Nix installer. Before we go any steps further, the reason why I'm showing...
You can ignore him, by the way. You don't have to, you can ignore Bitmap. No, just
okay. No, it's a good shout out. So there is multiple ways of installing Nix on a system. This is the official way. This is the one where you'll always go to their website. It's always supported in the community, and things like that. Now, there is another installer which is called Determinate Systems Nix installer, essentially, and that's that's made by Determinate Systems, and it's worth looking into. Like, it is a nice installer. Okay. Contrary to what Bitmapper is saying in chat, I actually do this approach with Darwin purposefully, because Nix Darwin seems to have better support for this. Determinate Systems normally ports in Mac OS updates. I mean, so does Nix as well, like the last. And so I've actually had a better experience by going through this installer on Mac. But, if you wanted to try Determinate, you're more than welcome to. Determinate does some other opinionations around the installer to kind of like help you. But we'll really take care of it with like a couple steps. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Thanks for explaining that. I'm sure that helps. And we can always just appeal to authority. You know, Bitmapper, you're not on the stream, and BG is. So, sorry. Just kidding. I'm just saying that because he hangs out on my stream, so I can a little bit.
I love it.
Okay, so we're here. We've got all this information. We made sure the computer doesn't have nicks.
It's going to, yeah. So it's telling you what it's gonna do. Yeah.
It's telling me what it's about to do. Okay.
Yep.
Wow, that's very informative. A little bit too much for me to read, actually. I'm a little
That's
overwhelmed.
fine.
But
yeah.
we can just hit Y, I imagine, at this point.
We can, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's actually gonna tell you one more time what it's gonna do.
Jesus Christ. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah. The real reason why it tells you this, I think, is because a lot of people, I think, are nervous about what this is going to do to their system, like what it's going to touch.
No, it's very cool. It's very nice UX, like, for sure. It's just,
yeah.
I get scared by walls of text. It's fine.
It's okay. It's okay. I will guide you through the walls. So whenever you're ready, you can just hit Y if you're interested. I can explain really quickly what it's going to do, which is really what Nix tries to do is it tries to encapsulate the builds as much as possible. Think about like a Docker image, right? You build a Docker image that goes into a Docker container, builds, and then creates your image, right? Nix has to do the same thing in some way, which is how it becomes immutable as well. And so what it's going to do is it's going to create users for Nix on your system. It's going to create actually volume mount on your system as well. So it's going to create a virtual container. And in that virtual container will be where your Nix store exists. And so like Nix is completely immutable. Whenever you do a build, it will never rebuild, it'll never like change that build. It'll just make a new build if there's a new change. So everything goes in that store is built by those users and built in that environment. And that's really what it's setting up. The last little note here is that it's going to back up and add some changes to your bash RC and your ZSH RC. Do you have much changes in your bash RC or anything like that? Okay.
I mean,
I believe it just depends.
No,
I believe it just depends, so it should be fine. But yeah, so
okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah.
I have it committed recently. I don't think I've changed that much. So
okay, cool.
We should be okay.
Cool. Okay, so then yeah, go ahead and hit Y, and then we will continue.
You do have to hit enter just for the people at home. You do have to press enter after Y, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah, it doesn't have the onset. Yeah. And then it's gonna ask you if it can do sudo. So and it even says, hey, this might look scary, but it's okay. Everything can be undone. And so yeah, again, one of the big reasons why I stay with the official installers is because it's not that I don't have faith in determinate systems. It's just this is the the one that's so trying to be as supported as possible. Yeah. They are trying to do something awesome for the community. This hopefully will guarantee you never, like, if you have to uninstall, you won't be like, oh no, like what version of something am I on or something. It should just so you should be able to go forward from there.
1 second, let me mute myself.
His dogs are afraid of the dark. Okay, so it gave me a lot of text that doesn't tell me a hell of a lot.
Yep.
What is this about?
So I think if you scroll up a little bit, I think it's just because it's showing you all the...
I'm in Tmux, of course, so I have to press things in order to scroll. Really okay, build users. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So it'll tell you like where it puts its temp stuff, where it's actually going to do the root. So it creates 32 build users.
Nice.
So it definitely does a little bit of work, and then it's going to create that root or that container for Nix's store. Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. So I think we're ready to continue.
Yep. And now you just put in your password.
I put in my password. Let's hopefully it just prints it out on screen, and that would be really cool. Oh, yeah, that's too bad. All right. All right. So it's executing a lot of things with sudo.
Yep. It's setting up the store at the moment, so it's trying to create the partition and then mount that to your system. And now it's creating all the users.
It's blazingly fast.
Yeah.
Functions describe.
But yeah, sudo mata, that was brought up. Yeah, what's up, Cybertriker? How's it going? Cybertriker is actually somebody from my community who's very, very deep into Nix too.
Nice.
He knows quite a bit.
Very
Welcome,
cool.
welcome. You're in good company of other functional
Yeah.
programming nerds.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very much so. He has to deal with my Go programming.
Functions describe the world.
Every once in a while, there's something hard. I bet Dylan's computer is already done.
I accidentally. Does anyone know the shortcut to jump to the bottom of a terminal?
The end key? Do you not have an end
I don't
key?
have an
Let's see,
end key on my 60%. I don't have it hot mapped to anything.
Oh, no.
Command right arrow, maybe, would do it.
Are you talking about in Tmux? Because I have no idea.
I'm actually not even
I
in
would be
Tmux
lost.
right now.
Oh.
Yeah, he only uses Tmux on stream to look cool. He doesn't actually use it.
Oh my god.
Okay.
I normally use Tmux. I just started using Tmux because I switched from Kitty to Ghosty, and Ghosty doesn't have the a remote API built in. So I can't like write like a Vim navigator between NeoVim windows and then Ghosty panes. Like you just can't do that yet. So I'm using Vim Tmux navigator in the interim to that API existing.
How's that going?
Oh my god, that's so smart. Bitmapper just saved my life. All right, I am caught up to you,
yeah,
Meta.
that's a good call.
Touchpad. Is that the tip? That helped you? Oh, we're finally ready to acknowledge something. I just thought this was going to be our whole stream. Okay. So,
Yeah, dude, we're installing Haskell.
all right, yeah. Dude, when I installed OCaml for the first time, it was literally like 23 minutes of my stream. Now, I do think something went wrong, but it was still 23 minutes. But I still
It's probably just
pretend it was
OPAM.
OCaml's fault. Yeah. Anyway, okay, here we are. I'm pressing enter to acknowledge
Yep, cool.
that we have to restart in order to use
To
it.
get Nix. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so I just have to exit my terminal, and we'll restart that. Okay, alacrity. We're
All right,
back.
I can see Nick's --s version. I'm sitting at 219.2.
Cool. Perfect.
Oh, that's right. You already installed. I forgot. So you.
I
didn't
actually
install this stuff.
uninstalled while you were figuring out your installer and reinstalled, following the same
Oh,
steps
wow.
as you. So
Nice.
I am on the same page. Clean slate.
know.
They
if
have
that
like a script, right, that they leave you to uninstall with, I think,
Yeah.
for
Yep.
determine it. Yeah.
Okay. Nobody got muted that time.
Nope, that seemed to have worked.
Okay. I think we're good.
Cool.
Let's see.
So you should
So
be
we
able to
hit-
do Nix.
this-
Yep,
this
beautiful.
Gives me this. All right. And if we say Nix help, we're here. Okay.
So that is one of the things that's really nice about the Nix CLI, and maybe the first thing I should kind of note before we move forward. So Nix is in the process, as any of these things that are like pseudo experimental are, of always changing. You know what I mean? It's always changing. And one of the big changes that they did recently is they moved to this whole new CLI, which is like a unified CLI. And they really kind of did what Docker did a while ago, which was they were like, we don't want you to have to download different CLIs and stuff. It's just all in one place, and it's all a subcommand or something like that. So like 99% of the commands that you'll run will probably just be with the Nix space command. However, there are commands that it does install in the off chance that you might need them. So for example, if you were to do like Nix dash and then hit tab, no, without the space. So like Nix just
dash,
hyphen, hyphen, and then tab.
Okay, here we go. So we've got a bunch of different commands we could do.
Exactly, yeah. And so these are the older commands that still exist. The garbage, like for example,
I get what you're saying now. So before it was kind of like they had all these different bends basically that you could run.
Yep.
And now you just have a single one that you can use to
exactly
make it nice. Okay.
Yes.
Very cool.
Now, some of the things haven't been fully migrated or are kind of confusing, or you might find documentation saying you can do this versus this. From what I know, most of these are backwards compatible, meaning if you run it in one place, it should be running the same, underneath. Right. And so I don't think it super matters, but like Nix collect garbage, for example, that's one that I still do the old-fashioned way, just so that I can know what parameters to use, because like some of the parameters have been updated in the new CLI as well. So again, you might find yourself in a situation where you're at some docs and you see like the old command. You can just run the old command or try and find the the new one.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So so you have Nix on your system. Let's go back to the GitHub really quickly. Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
What
I
up,
cannot
Trash?
believe you right now. No, I'm just kidding. All right, we got this. Let's go back to GitHub.
What up, Trash Head?
All right, so we're here. We've
Okay.
got we did step 1, so that was all just step 1, right?
Okay.
Okay.
So here's a question. How deep down the Nix rabbit hole do you want to go on your system?
Well, do you mean like I won't be able to undo these changes and I'll just be like this forever? I'll just be like in this endless ocean of asking Pick on Discord how I fix something on my Nix Flake because I can't even use Homebrew anymore. Okay,
Right.
sorry, go ahead.
So no, that's okay. That's like a super common concern. Super common. And it's also really fair because what you've done is you've installed Nix, and then if you were to go to your bash RC or your ZSH RC, you would just see that it's just got some hooks there, right? Because that's all that does, right? When you install it from the package manager level, that's all it does. However, if you were to then be like, all right, now I want Nix to like control my system, right? Have that home manager ability and stuff like that, then that's when we do like Nix Darwin and create a flake that you can begin to work with. Now, all of this is available. Like we have a flake that you can use, and you'll basically be right where you already are. And another thing to
know, it's going to, like, if I run this Nix Darwin malarkey, and that's the technical term for it. Like it's not like I couldn't just forget about, like, I could just forget about Nix and everything would be fine.
I mean, it would really be like if you had like you're not going to lose any of your existing programs. Homebrew will still be there. Everything will still work, right? Your shell might just look slightly different. That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
We'll go for it. You know,
Okay.
What the heck? I want this computer to be replaced soon anyway, so we might as well ruin it with Nix, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's actually a 2-liner. You want the first line, and you want to copy that, first,
Okay.
and I'll explain what this does. So, what's really awesome about Nix, and this is something that really starts to kind of change your perspective on how you share software, is Nix is all powered by either a compressed file like a tar.gz, or a repository. And so what's really neat is you can remotely tell Nix, hey, I have a artifact sitting over here, build it locally on my machine for me. And so one of the things that kind of changes your perspective with Nix is like, you don't install anything with Nix. You just build it locally and then you make it available in your shell, or you run it, in your shell after it's done. So when you run this, and you can feel free to, it's gonna
But if I want to be woke, like, I can just get rid of this dash and put a space, right? And it's the same thing.
So
Or
I
is it
think
not
so.
the same thing?
Yeah, that's where
Should
it's
we
like,
just try it right now, or
go for it. I mean, yeah,
Okay.
I just don't know if
It's
the
my system, so I guess you have no risk in this situation. But
Okay, so
you know,
Bitmapper Twitch says it's not the same thing. So
it's not.
okay.
He always says that though. Every time I'm like, this is basically
Okay.
the same thing. He says it's not this. It's actually just like a bit. I think that he does. You get it?
So
A bit.
I actually think he's right here. Yeah.
We'll run Nix dash build. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
All right.
So we'll get to this in a little while, but some of the commands in the new CLI support only what are called flakes, and those are meant to be, like completely reproducible. And again, we'll get to those in a second.
Okay.
But Nix build really means that it'll take anything. It'll take it basically parses the URI and then builds whatever that is. So you could pass it a GitHub repo, you could pass it a tar.gz, you could pass it a, an actual, Nix file, like a .nix file, and then it would build any of those things. Yeah.
So I'm guessing right now okay. It's starting to do things. I'm guessing that first bit was just downloading, and that's why it was not telling me anything.
Pretty much, yeah. So, yeah, and so in this case, what it's doing is it's downloaded that tar.gz, it looked at the definition inside of it, and then it went, okay, this is how I need to build the software. And so I don't think that you just downloaded like a huge piece of software. I think you more than likely just downloaded a zip file with a Nix file inside of it, right? And this is what Flakes fix. You don't have to do that with Flakes. So yeah. Cool. So now you've got Nix Darwin installed, and now if you just do an ls on your local directory.
Okay. Which is my home, so it's extremely large, so it's not very helpful.
Okay, let's do this. Let's do an ls.
What should we grep for?
Result.
Result. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Cool.
And do
Yeah.
we cat that? Do we want to?
That's a directory, so it's actually a directory.
So you can't cat a directory, is what you're telling me.
Right. Yeah.
So okay, so we have result.
Yep.
And what was the entire?
I wonder.
Unbelievable.
So what happens is when you tell Nix to build something, it's going to build it for you, and then by default, it's going to say, here's a local path that you can use to the thing you just built. And that is the result directory. Now, if you ls-alh that, actually, so just add
ALH, sure,
yeah.
on the result. Okay.
Any of it, yeah.
Okay.
You'll notice it's a symlink.
Ah, yeah.
So this is the first step into like Nix is providing me something from the store that I can now run locally, right? And so then what you'll do is
this is in /Nix. Like this is this is the actual Darwin installer bin, so to speak.
Yep.
Right. And this is just a symlink to that wherever I happen to be, and that's why here I can pretend it's installed locally, when in fact, of course, it's installed in this store. Okay.
Exactly.
Understood.
Yep. And so you can run that binary now as well.
Okay.
Just directly.
So I can't do that. I have to actually probably put in the path.
Yep. yeah. Result bin. Yep. And there you go.
Okay.
Okay, so it's going to ask if you'd like to edit your default config. This is why in Kickstart we go this route, because you do. So go ahead and hit Y.
You do want to edit. All right.
Yep.
Jesus. Okay. Here we go. I'm gonna have to leave again.
So let's go to the repo really quickly. Yeah, and then there should be a single line that we're going to copy that will help us.
Answer the following. Okay, I guess we'll switch over. It's not like it's been that hard. You guys okay with this? All right.
He just makes extra work for me every time he switches sources.
Do you have to unmute us like every time?
So far the muting's been good, but I have to reshare the screen share. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Oh, that's dumb. I'm sorry.
It's classic.
Crazy.
Just meta making my life harder, so it's nothing new.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, you know what? I forgot that it's you. Yeah, it's totally fine. I don't care. All right.
We definitely need to do this more. This is fun. Okay, cool.
It's been fun. All right.
And actually, what's great about this is I actually genuinely think this is going to be a really good video I'm going to post of just like getting started with Nix. Like, despite meta taking up all the mic time, it's going to be good.
I'm kind of compensating for the fact that I know you're just like trying to take the spotlight as much as you can, and I just have to compensate for that. All right.
Fair.
Oh my God. I love it. Okay, cool. So line 4 tells you to, after you say yes, to copy and paste this line into the configuration. The reason why I wrote this guide the way I did is because I wanted the person who's getting into Nix to realize that this isn't something that comes out of the box. With determinate systems, it is. But with normal Nix, it's not. And the reason for that is because of literally the key in the settings. It's technically an experimental feature, both of these.
Right.
So if you want to use some of the more advanced commands in the new CLI, you have to enable these experimental features. Now, if there are people out there who are really deep in the Nix rabbit hole, there is such an argument about if Nix flakes should be experimental, or some of these features should be experimental, because they've been there for so long and they are being so, like, these are the things that are really bringing people to the community.
Yeah.
And so hopefully you won't have to do this, but it is kind of
It's
a
kinda
call
like-
out to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, it's kind of like people come onto my Rust streams and make fun of me for using not nightly, and they're just like, "Why are you not using nightly?" And it's like, because it's nightly. It's
Oh,
not in the
jeez.
official language. Like, why would you use something that's not in the official language? So anyway, yeah, that's kind of my boomer styles. But okay, so we're just copying this line, and then we
Yep.
should probably go back to the terminal. All right,
Mhm.
all right, Dylan,
Yep.
I'm ready.
making
Don't
it work
worry.
again.
Sorry.
All right, here we
It'll
go.
come out way better edited.
Yeah, I'll have
Okay, so-
Kyle do some editing on this.
I'm
Nice.
guessing that. Oh, I don't have Vim motions right because I'm not in Vim. So I'm guessing that I'm putting it in this whole little curly brace area here,
Mhm.
not up here.
Yeah, so this is going to be your first taste of Nix
This is
the
a Nix file,
language. Yeah, this is a Nix file.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before we do that, I guess really quickly I can explain what's happening here. And hey, again, if you recognize some of this, awesome. I don't, again, I only know what I know functionally, at least from the, how Nix works. And so what's happening at the very, very top is that's actually the parameter potentially, essentially, that you can pass. Now, what we're doing is whenever we evaluate a Nix file, it essentially returns whatever the last thing in that file is, right? So it works in that sense where
Cool.
it parses the file, and then it says, like, okay, I see that you're passing a functional parameter right at the top, but then I want to return a attribute set for my configuration. And so now we're stepping into the language and that reusability and like having some kind of functional feel around it. And so what's happening underneath the hood is Nix, when it runs your Darwin configuration.nix, it's going to pass in config packages and all of these other things so that it becomes available to you in this config. And that's a bit of like the magic. One thing to
These are
note.
Would I think of these as requires, or would I think of these as like inputs?
Inputs. Yeah,
Yeah,
inputs. And we'll get further to that, but Nix really has a very simple concept of inputs and outputs.
Okay,
Right.
cool.
What are
So
the things I
this
need
is
to
my
pass?
input here, and then this is my output, which is probably everything in these curly braces, like as
Exactly.
a complete set. Okay.
Yep,
Cool.
exactly. Yeah.
All right.
And so you're basically returning a Nix configuration is what you're doing.
Does it matter where I paste this line? Like,
No.
is this fine? Okay.
No. Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. So the next
I just want to
thing.
point out that Emacs commands, by the way, work in Pico, and so get wrecked, Vim users. All right. Anyway, go ahead.
I didn't even realize this was Pico. I thought this was Nano. I was like, what? Because it looks identical. I was like, I am in the wrong. I've been doing this for quite a while, as I'm sure we all have. I never cared to learn Nano. I was like, no, I'm immediately going to reinstall Vim.
I got
Like,
stuck in Nano on stream last week. Like, it literally opened, or was it Nano or was it Vi? No, it had to be Nano, right? Because Vi, it's the same thing.
Vi's the same
Yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
You
So
just
I
do
could not
colon
like
Q.
exit out of Nano, and it was the worst experience ever.
no, I run into the same skill issue. Don't worry. Don't listen to Nightshade, dude. He's crazy. So
It's actually a
okay.
bot. Nightshade just has a
Functions
bot that says skill
describe
issue every once in a
the
while. and
world.
It mostly works.
I could see
Alright.
him doing that. So a couple things to note about the language. You'll notice that it has the ability to, I don't know what the actual term is, but basically squash your objects or your
Okay.
attribute sets. Sorry, not objects, your attribute sets.
Uh-huh.
So technically, you just described a Nix attribute with inside of it settings, with inside of it experimental features, right? But you can essentially put it all in one line if you'd like, and Nix will, expand that into an actual, inherited set of attributes. So it'll stay within the definition that you want. And so that's why, like, environment system packages, that's technically the environment attribute set or set. But because I want to just do system packages and just change that one thing, I can do the chaining like that. Sorry, that's what I meant to say, chaining.
Yeah.
And then it will evaluate it as nested, sets inside of that. And this is very common within Nix. Like, Nix does come with a lot of batteries included. And so you'll see that, like, a lot of, like, where's the rest of the environment config, right? Well, you don't really need it. They're just saying this is what we're going to, give you at least to start. And a kind of a kickoff from this, which I highly recommend, is Nix has a searchable interface to look for all of these options, which makes it a little bit nicer when we're trying to actually figure out what we want to do. And so if you go to Google, I think you can search like Nix Darwin options, and then it will give you like a complete, manual or search of where you can actually look at everything you can do with Nix Darwin in this particular case.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
worth
kind of
looking at right now on stream, or is that just good to know?
it's a good to know.
Options. Okay.
Yeah, it's good to know. It's we'll make some changes here in a second, but
Okay.
for now, I'm guessing you use CSH as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so outside of that, then you can just save this file, and then continue.
How do I save in Pico? All right, I figured out the Emacs command. It says exit. It
I
doesn't
think
even
it's
say
Control
save.
X. I think it's
So
and then
if I
yes.
say Control X, okay, and then it's saying Y. All right. And then we want to just write it to that file, and we're out of the file now. We figured out Pico. We're freaking experts.
Hey,
The
Meta,
only thing
I
I
would
know
just like
about
to
Nano.
say, I would like to say that NeoVim automatically opened to edit this file for me rather than Nano. So I don't know where your Emacs gods are now, but not on your
Well,
side.
it's because there's reasons, Dylan. Okay, there's reasons, but it's fine. I didn't need. I'm not. You see, some people, they're happy and they're content with a single editor. But some of us, we understand how to get fulfilled and fulfill multiple editors. And I'm more in that second camp
Oh, wow.
of people. Okay. Got
Wow. I feel
Took a turn.
okay. Yeah. Oh man, it feels so inferior all of a sudden. All right. So the next line that it's going to ask you is it's going to say, "Hey, would you like to manage Darwin with the Nix channel?" This you could say yes to.
Do I want to say yes? I'm just used to saying yes to everything so far. But,
Yeah. No, you can.
What am I
You
supposed
can.
to do?
No,
Okay.
yes is fine. Yeah, yes is fine. So essentially what this means is it just makes sure that the command Nix channel will add the Darwin inputs, meaning that it will it's kind of like apt a bit, where it will make sure that it tracks it, and then you can tell it to update, and then it will rebuild everything off of that update. And I guess that's kind of like the next thing I should go into, which is so you don't install things with Nix, right? You also don't upgrade things with Nix. You just rebuild them.
Okay.
Right? So what you're seeing right now in front of you is whatever the current state
Functions
of
describe the world.
Nix Darwin package manager is, right?
Okay.
Unlike a normal package manager, tomorrow,
Functions
if I was to come in and say like,
describe
okay, I
the
want
world.
Nginx, right? And a new
Yeah.
version came out, I would get the latest version of Nginx, right? With Nix, that's not how it works. With Nix, it tracks all of these inputs, and then it says, when you tell me to update, then I will go and update that channel, right? And then I will look for the new definitions to rebuild, right? And so what ends up happening is when you're ready, you basically say, hey, I want to update my lock file, really is what it turns out to be at the end of the day. Kind of like, any package manager that at least tries to be sane about package management. But yeah, it generates a lock file. And again, if you look at the Nix store, you're going to notice that right after it says Nix/store, it gives you this, hash sum or SHA, basically. This is a pattern that is constantly throughout Nix, which is I want to build software for an exact version, and Nix is going to stamp that version with this SHA. And so then it will be able to know, okay, do I have that version? Do I have a newer version? And it's all just through like evaluation and stuff like that. So the TLDR to take away from that is that Nix doesn't update itself. You tell it to update from the sources when you want to run that command and tell it. So now what we've done is we've installed Nix Darwin on your system, and we've set it up so that you can run Nix command. You can also run Nix, flakes and stuff like that. So let's, just to be safe, go ahead and close your terminal for me and reopen it.
Okay.
They don't tell you to restart it here, but I'm pretty sure it's a good idea too.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
Aren't lock files for flakes? Well, so it will, it still has to lock something, bitmap or Twitch, right? It's doing it at the host level when you do it with channels, and it does the same thing. It just creates it's not like a flake lock file. It's just some kind of channel lock file, basically. I think that's where some of that came from. But yeah, it works essentially the same technically, I guess. Okay, cool. So now we have Nix installed as well as Nix Darwin. So let's try and at least see if it's working, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to type a command in
Function
chat.
described
Nix
the
run
world.
Nix packages, and then we'll do neofetch.
Okay.
Excellent. Classic.
Yeah, classic first program to run.
Often
And I'm going
gives
to
me a lot of commands
explain
to run, but
what
they usually have,
happens while
RM,
you
RF,
run
so
that.
I don't-
So what it's going to do first is it's going to actually go out to Nix packages. If you look at the URL there, it's downloading the repository's archive. The reason for that is because Nix packages, the actual GitHub repo, is the archive of every Nix package available. It's got like 80,000 repositories in it or something like that. And so what it's doing is it's going out, downloading that repo in a compressed, basically as small as it can be, because again, it's got a lot of definitions in it. And then it will find neofetch in that definition set using the hash, and then it will build it locally and run it. And so that's what we're essentially seeing it do right now. I think it's evaluating. I've noticed that on Mac, this does take a little while. You're not the only person that's going to deal with this. I deal with this too from time to time. It's normally the first time it evaluates Nix packages where maybe it's not cached or something like that. I don't really know, but I do know that sometimes this will hang for a second. And it does
not just that my system is
I would say that I've been about finished for about 45 seconds now. So get with the times, old man.
Oh my gosh. I don't pay for hardware. That's all that it comes down to. I don't pay for it. Work pays. That's why I'm on Mac. That's why I'm on a 5-year-old computer at this point. All right. Anyway.
There we go. So it's evaluated it, and there we go.
That.
Now we have neofetch. So
now you guys can understand why that took so long. It's all here.
Okay, cool. So neofetch ran. We could see that it was able to execute and then give us output. And this is a way of interacting with Nix packages. And even if we were to just start here, as a developer, this really gets rid of most of the usage of homebrew, right? Because you go from saying I'm gonna homebrew install something like Terraform or something like that, and then you can just say Nix packages run Terraform or whatever, and then it'll run it for you. And you can, if you really wanted to, do an up arrow for me.
Sure.
and then replace neofetch. Oh no, sorry. Replace neofetch with OCaml.
Okay.
And it's going to do the exact same thing. It's going to go out to Nix packages. It's going to evaluate it, and then it will hopefully not have to build it on your system. If it does, we might stop it.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
But
at least
yeah.
you can see my incredible download speed right now. Look at that. You know, it's the one thing I've got going for me right now. Okay. Anyway.
So I do want to make a shout out really quickly though to this, which is Nix does a really, really good job of compressing everything. As a matter of fact, you didn't just download the definition, you actually downloaded a build cache binary that was already built somewhere. And so this is a massive game changer when you talk about like building software with Nix. If you have other versions and stuff like that, you don't have to worry about it. It does the lazy caching and the lazy loading for you. And so, yeah, really what it did was it says, okay, I see that he's on an Intel machine. We've already built for an Intel machine that exists. All of this comes out of the box with Nix packages, basically.
That's so nice.
So it's good to use Nix packages, right? More often than not, you'll have a build binary cache available for you in Nix packages, and you won't have to worry about building it locally. That changes obviously when you're building your own software.
Right.
Yeah. So
no, it's neat though. Let's see. I'm just trying to here. Let's do this real quick. So obviously, like this hasn't changed. The fact that in my shell, if I just called it OCaml, it's going to use what my system
Yep.
has.
CS510.
Yeah. So we're here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this also brings up another thing, which is that I'm, Nix packages is currently on 4.14.1 for OCaml, and I have 5.1.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We're here already.
We're here already.
Yeah,
and we don't have to talk about it now, but I just thought I'd bring it up because I bothered to read the versions, and if I bothered to read it, I might as well talk about it, right?
No, it's a super valid point, and here's how I'll explain it. So Nix really tries to build any kind of piece of software possible, right? Python, Go, JavaScript, OCaml, like everything, right?
Yeah.
And not only does it build that software, but that software then becomes dependent on other software, right? Because if you can, so for example, if I was to say like, all right, I want to work with OCaml, right? And I want to make it so that, I have the formatter, I have the LSP, like everything. I can have all of that in my Nix store. And then if it's NeoVem, it'll run the LSP, in the formatter. And then if it's local, it'll run it locally. But that OCaml is building other OCaml packages as well, right? And so this is where it becomes a difficulty because we can't shift the whole community to 5 if 2,000 packages are being built with 4.1 stably. And that's a big win with Nix, which is, and again, this is really the great part about it. If it built successfully somewhere else, it will build successfully for you.
Right.
That's pretty much a guarantee out of the box. And so this is where the community kind of, it's up to them to see how quickly we can get into the new version. And the same thing happened with Go. When Go switched over to 1.20, I think, or something like that, we were on Go old version for a while. Yeah. Now, as Bitmapper is saying in chat, there is a workaround. Normally, somebody's trying to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. And so you might have to do a little bit of digging, but there is actually a 5.1.1 or 5.1.0 available. It's just in a different path.
Got it.
And so I'll show it to you.
That's understandable.
I would also note that 4.14 is still the LTS at the moment.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking that. I kind of thought that was the case. It also kind of reminds me of in Haskell, we have stack. And stack basically takes a group of packages and says, these groups of packages are guaranteed to work together. You can try to replace it with this latest version of said package.
Right.
you know, but we can't guarantee that it's going to work with all these other
Exactly.
things.
Yep.
So it reminds me a little bit of those interdependencies
Massively.
that
Yeah.
way. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the lower you go, the more challenging that becomes. You know, if it's like languages, they might not move as quickly sometimes. The cool thing, and this is like, again, an awesome takeaway, I think, is this is powered by the developer community, meaning that, like, you know, if something is really popular, it'll probably get patched really quickly. You know, if it's something that's not, then that's where you honestly you could go to the repo and add it yourself if you wanted, and that's what a lot of people end up doing.
Right.
Cool. Okay, so that should kind of explain you know, why you have that version difference. And you know, again, like, at least kind of how it works from a Nix run perspective. Now let's do one more thing.
Sure.
So you did Nix run, right?
Yeah.
Go up it one more time for me and change
Okay.
run to shell.
Okay.
So say you're like, I don't want to have to run this whole Nix shell, Nix packages thing over and over and over. Or you may want additional binaries that come with the package that you're trying to build or install. So now, yeah, you'll see that there's an OCaml. I don't know if this is being overridden or not, but try running it. Try running it directly.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay, so it's still on 5.0.
It is.
So we'll be able to fix this in a minute, but there are it might be OPAM doing some specific things here where it gets like, if it's the last thing, then Nix will never be able to override it, right? In the shell,
and
in your shell.
Could it also be based on what's in my, like, ZSHRC, like the
Heavily.
order?
Yeah, heavily. Yeah, heavily,
Okay.
for sure.
I will say for me, doing neofetch, this worked. If I do which neofetch, it points to the Nix store.
Does it? Okay, cool.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
it really does
Should we
depend
just try
on.
that real quick? Just for
Sure. Yeah,
So if
absolutely.
we do this.
And look
and
at the
we're-
difference. You'll notice that it's not going to build again. It already has it.
Right.
So, yeah, now you should be able to just do which neofetch.
So we're there, and then if we hit neofetch, of course that was the dumb way of doing it. I meant to do which. I just forgot. Okay, so here we go. We're in the Nix store, and that's our neofetch. For whatever reason, it could just be the order in my ZSHRC, but, you know,
Yep.
that didn't happen for OCaml. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so if you were to say, like, all right, I'm done with this, you can just type in exit, and then you'll leave the shell that has that in it.
Like, literally exit like this. I don't have to, like, prefix it at all. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was just like a right. So that changed my shell environment, basically, you could say. Shell environment. I don't know what you should call it.
Yeah.
I make up words. But, like, it, you know, to be this special Nix environment, and then that's why I would just hit exit, kind of like I would in another session.
Exactly.
Okay, anyway.
Yeah. And you
Just
can
made
kind of
myself
start
really
to
dumb.
see where that shell, like, you know, development environment kind of starts to happen. You know, because if you can get one, you could definitely get, you know, a ton more in there as well.
Right.
Cool. Okay. So let's do this now. Let's go back to the repo really quickly.
Yeah.
I do actually have a question.
Sure.
Meta, was this supposed to append something to my zshrc? Because at the moment, I don't see anything new in my zshrc.
Like when you installed? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Let me just cat my ZHC and grab.
Yeah, it does. It's an
Nix.
Etsy profile. Yeah, it's at the root level.
Yeah. So, well,
Gotcha.
I just unshared this, but did you find it? Do you want me to? Well, I can show it to you after we go back to the repo. Let's
Sure,
go back to
yeah.
the repo first, and then let's try to do this efficiently. All right. It's so efficient. Everybody knows if they watch my stream, I'm really fast. It's kind of like prime level speed as far as getting things done. So, you know, it's mostly what I care about. All right, go ahead. We're back here.
Cool. Okay, so at this point, you've got Nix installed. You've installed Nix Darwin, and you've kind of like touched the configuration a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So actually, don't hate me, but let's actually go back to the terminal really quickly. Sorry. I want to show you something else that I just realized. Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
So
You can share a
like I
screen,
said,
Meta.
You know, if I shared the screen, it would be impossible to see. It's a 34-inch ultra wide.
oh wow. Okay.
So, you know, it wouldn't be so good. All right. Anyway, this is what's in my ZSHRC, Dylan, as far as Nix goes. I don't know if that answers your question, but there it is.
Yep.
And that's in your user directory.
Yeah, home. What, you know.
I have nothing in my ZSHRC for Nix.
That's weird. Did you just, well, it said well, no, it didn't give me an option specifically for that. That was just one of the things it did in the whole batch.
Check your
But it's
Etsy
working for you.
profile or your
Yeah,
Etsy ZSHRC.
Cat Etsy / ZSHRC. I should have grepped there. Okay, I do see Nix stuff in there. I see Nix profiles. I see.
What is this Etsy business? What are you talking about? Etsy? Oh, like ETC, the directory.
Yeah, ETC. Yeah.
Am I just now finding out about this after many
that
years?
it's Etsy. I don't know.
I've never heard Etsy.
I've always heard it called Etsy.
That's hilarious. That's what happens when you prefer text resources and you're not a Zoomer watching YouTube videos to learn
First
things.
of all, I am not
All
a
right.
Zoomer.
I know, dude. I know. You're a little bit younger than the Zoomer crowd, but that's fine.
Oh my god.
Right.
But yeah. Okay, so the thing I wanted to show you is that in the same home directory, you should have a Darwin configuration. And it might be Nix Darwin. I don't really remember exactly what the path is. Just try. It might be in the Nix directory itself. I think you should have a .nix. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. You gotta. Okay. Oh, it's because I didn't do a -a. I'm being dumb. Okay. So let's just look at this. All right. What do you? Okay. No.
Try doing.
I
Nix
have
packages.
I have Nix channels, Nix def expression, and Nix packages.
Okay.
So
Well,
try
first
Nix
of all, let
packages
me-
then.
Let me do this. Okay, that didn't do anything. Okay, there we go. All right.
Yeah,
so
try Nix packages.
packages. Okay.
There it is. Yeah, there it is.
That's our Darwin configuration. Okay.
Yep.
Mhm.
So if you want to open that with Vim really quickly, or NeoVim, or Vim, whatever you use.
We just use VI.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. If I have to open something.
Okay. Cool. So this, if you wanted to, you could do everything with Nix Darwin and be done with it, right? And this is things like, you'll see that it's installing Vim for you. It's enabling the Nix daemon or daemon, whatever you want to call it. Anything that's commented out, obviously it's not going to run, but at least it shows you some of the things that's available there.
Right.
But you talked about we've talked about like home manager and like how does that play into that or into this. The main reason why I'm showing you this is because this is how you would configure Nix if you were not using home manager.
Okay.
Right. And really not even if you weren't using home manager, but also if you weren't using a flake, which is really what we're going to do next. We're going to actually start using a flake because for me, like, I think this is great to explore and go into, but you get so much more benefit out of creating a flake because then you can say, all right, well, now when I move to another computer, I have the exact same setup, right? It's all about that reproducibility. And so if you wanted to, for example, if you're like, all right, I got a new Mac, I want to move, you'd have to copy this file, any other files, move it. There's no like remoteness to this part if you choose to stay with this approach. So we're going to.
You would take this Nix flake we're getting ready to create, and you would that's what you would put on your GitHub, right? And when you switch systems, we would go through all the steps we just did, and then we would just build off the flake in our GitHub, and we'd have our system.
Exactly. Yep.
Chef kiss.
Yeah. It's.
So what's the difference between that and homebrew? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean it works. Yeah, I don't. I mean, like that was when I finally got an environment that I had, and then I moved it. That was when it was just like, oh my god, this is amazing. So yeah, it is really that. It really is. You create that remote, that remote definition in a repo, and then like now here's what's even crazier, which is technically you don't even have to download it because Nix can look at remote locations. So if either of you were to be like, hey, could I use your environment? Yeah, just point to my flake and you'll get my whole dev environment.
That's
Yeah. And so
very
like
cool.
yeah, it's like it becomes really powerful because remember you did that with the tar.gz.
Yeah.
And downloading and building Nix Darwin.
And this is like one side of this is definitely like obviously like reproducing my dev environment, but like I did consulting for basically the better part of 6 years across 2 different companies, and dropping into different companies and then onboarding devs from either your own consultancy or working with devs from the own company and getting like projects set up and scaffold and getting your dependency rights. Like that can take, I've had to take multiple weeks before you're in a stable dev environment, and having something like this to just like, hey, pointing at this flake and have it activate your shell with Nix and you have the same environment as every other dev on the team. Like I think there's a lot of value in that.
Yep. And whenever you need to update, you just rerun it. That's it. Yeah. It becomes really a game changer, for sure. So like I think what we should do is we can go ahead and close this file now, and we'll go ahead and start with the kickstart stuff. So you can copy or if you want, you can just type in the command. It's up to you.
Them again. All right, we're good.
So let's do this. Let's create a directory in your home called kickstart.nix for now, and you can change it to whatever you want later. Perfect. And then we'll go into that directory. Now, because I've done this more than enough times, I can actually just tell you what to write. But if you want, you can copy and paste the command too.
Okay, so this is on your repo, just so people know, right? Like this is we've got make dir kickstart.nix in the repo. We changed directory cd in case anybody didn't know, and we're here. Okay.
Yep. And then the next command should be like a nix init command, right?
Nix flake.
Yep.
We say nix flake init, and then a lot of other. Okay, I'm gonna copy this because I'm.
Feel free to copy it. Yeah.
I got hit with a dir env error. Dir env.
Well, do you have dir env installed?
I do.
Okay. Well, we might have to take a look at that in a second.
Yeah. You're getting too fancy, Dylan. If you just stay cursed like me, you don't.
It appears that just typing dir env allow has resolved the immediate error.
It is. It does. Nice. Yeah. Perfect. All right. Cool. So you're good then. Okay. So, to explain this, yep. Right, so to do it. Sorry.
No, I don't really mean to cut you off. You can mostly ignore me.
That's okay.
I'm not intending to cut you off. Sorry.
Yeah, I did get an error.
I'm just excited.
Right. BG is just new to me, so like he hasn't figured out that you can mostly disregard 99% of what I have to say. All right, go
ahead. Okay, cool. So what's really awesome about the Nix tooling systems they are really focused on developer experience, and one of the nice things that flakes provide outside of what we've already talked about is it provides a templating utility as well. Now, what we're telling Nix right now is that we want to initialize a new flake, and I want to point to a repository, and I want to get a specific definition in that. So you remember how we did like Nix packages and then hash and then neofetch?
Yeah.
You're doing the exact same thing here. The input is the definition of the repository, right? The hash is the definition you're building inside of the repository, right? With a flake. And so because Kickstart has like a bunch of different templates, we're choosing the Darwin template because you're on a Mac. Right. So if you hit enter.
And because Mac users are godless, so they worship Darwin. Sorry
Exactly.
about that one. All right.
That's a good one. I like that one. Yeah. So it's gonna go out to the repo. It's going to evaluate
Functions
the
describe the
flake
world.
itself. So it's looking at the flake in that repo, and then once it evaluates it, it will render templates for us, basically.
Okay.
And now the thing to note about these templates, they're just raw type or raw text files. Like there's no real templating here, which is a bit of a bummer. You'll see why in a second. But there's like no, it's just like if you wanted, and we do this in some places, like you could have a template for like a Go or like a OCaml, project. And then say like, okay, in it with this git ignore this, file, and then just have your developers, oh, you want to in an OCaml project? Boom, done.
As long as you don't say TypeScript, I'm happy. You
Okay,
can say
cool.
whatever else you want. Basically.
Yeah, you won't hear me say
All
that. You
right.
won't hear me say that.
Okay, I'm
so
gonna
yeah.
jack the screen share for a second, just because
Okay, go for it.
I have hit an error.
Okay.
So let me take over screen share. Yes, and I will share my ghosty.
Don't show your
terminal.
hentai folder.
Yeah, I'll try not to
Yeah.
make the same mistakes as Meta here.
It happens.
All right, so we're in here, and
Okay.
I did the thing. Nick's
Yep,
like in
that
it.
looks
I
good.
hit this. I wrote
Yep.
direm allow, and now anytime I change directory into here, I'm getting this error saying, Flake such and such does not provide these attributes or one of these attributes.
Flake path users. Can you show me your actually do this for me really quickly. Do dir-env space revoke. There we go. You're good. I think because you're trying to go into dir-env before we've like actually ran it, I think it's getting confused.
Okay.
I also did you install dir-env with your previous version of Nix?
I installed direm with Homebrew.
With Homebrew. Okay. Okay,
I
cool.
think.
Yeah, because so you might, if you're gonna follow the same
Yeah.
approach that I am, you technically won't need it in Homebrew anymore. So you could uninstall it if you
Get it
wanted
gone.
to. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll show you how easy it is to install or enable all this stuff with Nix. So you might need to update your ZSH.
ZSH.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I should be good. Meta, you can take back over here.
Okay. Should we go back into terminal right now, or are we going back?
Yeah,
to
yeah. Terminal's fine, yeah. I can guide you from here,
Good deal.
I think. Yeah, I can.
Show me the way, Sensei. All right.
Sweet. I shall. Okay, cool. So we've created essentially a bunch of files on your system from a template, right?
Yeah.
Now, the template itself is really designed to kind of be explanative, to try and help guide you with what you're trying to achieve, and also kind of help you get comfortable with the language, which is why I don't just give you like one massive Flake file. I give you a series of files where you can see how the module system works, how the inheritance works, where each file is, and kind of like how you can separate and classify and put these different parts of your configuration, right? So let's start where really every one of these repos starts with is actually initializing it as a repository. It looks like you already have it, so I'm guessing this is because of your .files directory or your .files
Oh yeah,
repo. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a Git repo in home, but there's not a Git repo in this folder. Yeah.
So that's fine. I think what it's doing is it looks like it is trying to pick this one up. Do you have like a git ignore or something like that?
Yeah, we can add it to it.
So
let's
if you
see. We're just gonna say
yeah.
echo kickstart.nix something like this, and that's probably okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. I dropped the ball here, guys. 1 second. All right, I pushed meta stream.
It's all right. It still thinks. Well, I haven't Let me think about this. Oh yeah, so I'm still here, but
Uh-huh.
right, it's not picking this up anymore. So we're okay. It's in our git ignore now.
Cool. Okay, so go ahead and do a new git init for me in that directory.
Yeah, that we can do.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the next thing about Nix that a lot of people get stepped up on. Even I
Okay.
do every now and then. Nix, the way Nix calculates hashes normally is by being able to know that it's been staged to your repository. So if you have a repo, for example, and you're working, you create a bunch of new files, and then you're like, Nix build. Nix won't know about any of those files because they're not staged into the tree. And that's what Nix uses to identify things you want to build versus things you don't want to build, at least, or at least add to the build workspace. Right. So it like, for example, it could be an OCaml file. It could be, any other kind of file. But the point is that if it's not added to the working tree, it doesn't have to be committed, but as long as it's added to the working tree, Nix will be able to identify it. However, if
So
you're not
Nix and Git are like
yeah.
this.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. They work very closely
Oh,
together.
yeah.
It uses well, it uses, all of the SHA checksums, like it will literally calculate and work with Git directly to know which identical version of which commit you're trying to build, right?
Okay.
And so if you're not using Git, however, you don't have to abide by these rules, but then you're, kind of in your own world. Like, it's just going to add everything, and you're obviously not working in a repo. So it does work without a repo. But once you add that repo element to it, you have to remember to stage the file. That's really the takeaway from that.
Got it. Okay. So if I have no repo at all, like, then it wouldn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. It'll say like, okay, well, I'll just take the tree from the folder structure. Whereas like Git, it'll recognize that. It's kind of like NeoVim in that sense, or Vim even in that sense, where it identifies a Git workspace, and it works within that. So yeah,
I appreciate that you mentioned like a fairly modern piece of software, and then you're like, wait a second, you're probably not going to know what that is. So you went ahead and went further back to something that I could possibly relate to. So
the same thing. Yeah. They're very similar, like in a lot of ways. Like they really are.
all right.
Cool. So yeah. So what I would do is like git status really quickly just to see, what you've got. And then you can see that that's what's sitting there. And then you could just do a git add -a basically to add everything.
I didn't like that. I usually use git add dot.
That's fine. Yeah, that works too. So if we do git status, there we go. Now Nix will know and it will see. But we're not fully ready just yet. We want to make some changes because we have these files, but they're not fully set up for you yet. This is unfortunately the downside, or one of the downsides to Nix template is there's no way for me to inject things like your username or your password or whatever, right? And Nix can manage all of these things. And so if you were to apply this right now, you would actually get a failure because there's an error written specifically in the code so that you can't apply this and mess up your system.
So how do you actually apply? Just for the hell of it? Like, should we pretend like I don't know what I'm doing? And
yeah, if you want, go for it. Yeah. So if you go back to the repo, you should see that in there's the next command that you need to run, which is what is it? Let me see here. It should be the
Darwin rebuild switch command.
Yep.
Okay. And
then you need to make sure you pick it.
Because on Intel.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know how things work.
So before you run this command really quickly, let me explain it. Can you hit Control L for me really quickly?
Sure.
Beautiful. Okay, so this is now where you're kind of stepping away from using the normal Nix command, and you're using a Nix Darwin specific command. This is because you're not on Nix OS. Now on Nix OS, there is a Nix OS rebuild equivalent. But because we want Nix Darwin to manage the system, we tell Darwin rebuild instead. So if you're on a Nix OS system, this will be different. It's in the template as well, so you'd see that. But the thing to note here is that because we're on Darwin, we have to use Darwin rebuild.
Darwin rebuild, and I'm guessing is this something that we got when we did the whole Nix Darwin install? You might have said that, and I might have zoned out. So
Nope, I didn't. Yeah. And it did come with Nix Darwin. Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, you would not have this command, and you wouldn't be able to do this like switch flake thing that we're doing.
okay, cool.
So what you can actually do, and here's what's really, really cool about Nix is, okay, so we just said that this flake will manage our whole development environment, right? Say I want to know that it will break before I apply this, right? You can actually run Darwin rebuild check instead of switch, and it will build everything into the store, but it won't actually apply it, right? And so this means that, like, if I wanted to, I could build this on remote systems. If I had like CI, I could be like, all right, I want to make sure my dev environment's always building properly. Okay, run check. Things like that will make it so that you can at least make sure before you make the change that it's going to work. Before we run this, though, let me explain another thing. So, as I mentioned, Nix doesn't upgrade anything. It just rebuilds whenever it sees changes. So if you update the version of something, then yeah, it's going to rebuild and it's going to add those changes, right? However, when you use like Nix for your development environment like this, what you're effectively doing is you're telling Nix to generate a new generation every time. Now, here's what's really cool about this. When you go to run Darwin rebuild check, it will build it locally and verify that it works. When you run switch, that's when Nix is actually going to say, okay, I'm going to change to the new generation of changes. You have effectively versioned environments now. So for example, if I switch once, I'm on generation 1. If I switch again, I'm on generation 2. Switch, keep switching with changes. I keep going to new generations. If I run into a problem where a generation breaks even for some reason, I can roll back to that previous generation, no problem.
That's cool.
As long as it exists in the Nix store, I can go back to it. So if we're talking about like a Nix OS system, say you do something really bad, like you mess up like your fstab, right, or something like that,
right?
And you generate and reboot, and then it's like, nope, not gonna work. When you reboot, there will be a list of all of these generations, and you can just click the previous generation, and it will then load the previous files and the previous configs, and the system will then once again reload. This works the exact same way with this approach and what we're doing, where when you run switch, again, it's not upgrading it. It's saying there's a new generation that I want to move to.
Right.
So
is it idempotent though? Like if I run switch and I've literally changed nothing, it's going to know that, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah, it will not switch unless there's changes. So go ahead and run that really quickly.
Yeah, sure. I mean, only if society could just roll back generations the same way that Nix does, right?
I mean, I guess. I mean, doesn't that kind of defeat Darwinism? But sure.
I mean, a little bit.
Evolution,
bit. But at the same time, you know.
Yeah. And as Cybertracker is saying, like NixOS, using the actual operating system, you can do this all the way down to the host, you know? So if you accidentally change a user password, even that, you can run, like if you accidentally mess up your password and it's managed by Nix, you just go back to previous generation.
Yeah. You can tell this is made by nerds because they bothered to do MIB instead of just doing MB. You know, they really bothered to make sure that you know the difference of what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, no, when you're talking, what's really cool about this approach too is like, especially if you've used a lot of Docker, you really start focusing on just building software again. You know, like you're not worrying about like, what's the environment? Like what OS am I, like all that stuff just goes away. And you're just like, I'm just building the software now. And what's really cool, you know, later on when we get to it in like another one, you can actually build Docker images with Nix.
I've heard that. Yeah.
And what's really cool about that is because Nix embeds everything, it will only put what it needs into like a what's it called, a scratch image.
Got it.
So it doesn't even need much, which is really awesome. Okay, cool. So we hit the error, right?
Yeah.
And it says error username. Now,
Right.
obviously not the greatest error, but again, in the docs on the Kickstart, it tells you
Right.
why
Yeah, I
you
saw
get this
that.
error.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do it this way because Uncle Bob will be happier that we ran a failing test and then we
For
fixed
sure.
it. And I mean,
Absolutely.
it's really just a more efficient way of writing software in general. It's objectively true. Okay, so basically I need to open the flake.nix in here, and I'm going to, let's see, what did
So
you
I
say?
could kind of explain a little bit of
Yeah,
this
sure.
because this is like, I already have a video about this on YouTube, so I do recommend taking a look at it, like just plugging my own video. I
Nice.
talk about
Plug away.
flakes a lot and what they, like what they do. But at the highest level of just like, engineer to engineer kind of sharing knowledge.
Yeah, so that I don't have to go watch your video. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
What we're looking at is a variation of a Nix file, right? And so before, when I showed you the Darwin configuration, I told you it returns an object, or not an object, sorry, when it returns an attribute set or a set, right?
Yeah.
We're doing the same thing here. A flake is technically just a Nix file
Right.
in a specific definition that is usable as a flake. And so this is where all the way back, we're now talking about that domain-specific language, right? If you describe it in one way, like I showed you with Darwin, you can just like manage a very simple, have a very simple interface with what you're trying to build. If you use flakes, however, you'll notice that this has a bit more opinionation out of the box. You mentioned requires, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is where inputs comes in, where you're telling Nix, this flake, hey, I want a Darwin package, I want a home manager package, and I want a Nix packages. And so what this enables us to do is tell the flake all of our inputs. This is kind of comparable to in Docker when you do like from,
Okay.
right? The difference here is the from is a repo, and it has a SHA checksum that it will lock for every single one of these inputs. So when we take a further step back, and when I told you about the channel updates, this is really where that comes into play here. Because Nix will look at your inputs. It'll say, okay, let me download the GitHub LNL7 Nix Darwin repo. Let me get the home manager repo. Let me get the Nix packages repo. And then let me get the SHAs and the checks and the commits for all of these. And that's never going to change. We'll always clone that exact same version. And it will always have the exact same packages for that version. Now, I've seen in chat where they're talking about Docker is repeatable but not reproducible, and that's correct.
Yeah.
What makes Nix reproducible is that it will never change any of the inputs that you provided until you update the lock file for it.
Right. Yeah.
And this is a paradigm separate from, like, if Docker was able to just go in and be like, all right, now I'm just going to somehow resolve everything you installed and like checksum lock it, then that would work and it would effectively be reproducible. But it doesn't. You can install one Docker version today and it'll be one version, and one tomorrow it'll be another. But because this follows that lock, it'll never change.
Yeah, that's very neat. Yeah, I remember that. That's jogging my memory about that main difference.
So
Yeah,
I see
right.
in this inputs thing here that we have like we've got darwin.inputs.nixpackages.follows. What is this follows convention here?
So some packages share package dependencies, right? Like peer dependencies.
Yep.
What you can do with Nix is you can tell it, hey, well, I have my own version of Nix packages that I'm using
Okay.
in my input. I don't want you to use the Nix packages reference in the Darwin inputs flake. I want you to use my Nix packages. So whenever Darwin goes to build its own version on your system, it will use the Nix packages from your SHA and not the one from the actual repository. So it's a way of like overriding dependencies inside of other flakes so that they track what you want them to track instead.
Gotcha. That totally makes sense.
Yeah, and so when we say follows Nix packages, it just references our version and our SHA instead of the one inside of its own system.
So another
and
language
so that-
question.
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're fine.
So we describe our inputs attribute set here, and we give it like this object or this scope.
Yeah.
And then we reference, I'm assuming that same attribute set using inputs at. Is the .url what makes it accessible, or like what adds it to the inputs object there? Or I'm trying to I don't know what the best way to ask
Sure.
this is. Like
Yeah,
how
no,
do we go
so-
from inputs to that struct down below? And like the
Right,
name.
yeah. This is why people say flakes are confusing and they don't want it to be standardized yet because of literally what you're talking about. Like, it's kind of hard to understand what the definition means. So in this case, when you do inputs and you say like Darwin at the top, that is now an exposed set, right? That now once it resolves, it will resolve in that variable name. So if I say like I want to, like Darwin in this case is arbitrary. You could call it flippity florp, and then it would resolve as flippity florp in your code. It's just parsing the inputs and then resolving those inputs as their named or named keys in the inputs structure. So I guess like another thing to kind of note about the language is, we said that it can, chain so that it has the ability of just like having one long thing as attribute sets, right? Each input is kind of like a wild card where Nix will say, I don't care about what you name it, but whatever that first key in inputs is, will be what you use it as in the code. However, we know how to pattern match because it's a functional programming language and it has pattern matching. We know how to pattern match and say anything underneath that or anything nested inside of that set is parsed by Nix and used as configuration values. So Darwin is unique to whatever you want it to be, but then inputs.nixpackages.follows, that has to be a real configurable value. Right, URL as well. And so it allows you to name your inputs whatever you want so that you can use it in your code, but then each of the inputs follow the same definition and validation for how they're parsed.
Okay, that makes more sense. Got it.
Yeah. Now, we've talked about inputs, right? Let's talk about outputs, right? So inputs are really just repositories that are coming into your flake. Outputs is what your flake provides, right? So, okay, now I want to build something and I want it to be an output from my flake. And this is where the next part of the DSL comes in, where we say we have inputs and then outputs, and then the first parameter in outputs is actually inputs so that you can get all of your dependencies, right? Nix is lazy loading for starters, which means that if you were to load in Nix packages, you would notice that it's like, again, it's got like hundreds of thousands of files in it. But the reason why your editor just doesn't die when you try using it is because Nix lazy loads the only things that you parse. And so it does that in the outputs, right?
Gotcha.
So I want to parse something from my inputs. Let me grab that, parse it, and then Nix will go, okay, I see that this is something you want to build. I'll just focus on parsing that one specific part of the tree. And so that's how you can have like a massive repo with tons of files, but then like build within the same amount of time because it just targets that one specific thing. So, okay, we talked about inputs. Again, it's got inputs self. So the only thing to note about self is self allows you to reference the flake. So it's kind of like a this, where, okay, I have an output that I want to build, but then I want to reuse that output in my own code. And so you can have like dependencies like that, where you can say like, okay, at the high level, you know, here's all the things I build. And then if I have to build something inside of it, and that's a dependency, I can reference it at the high level, and then Nix will know how to evaluate that dependency tree. So it'll go like, okay, I see that this is the thing that depends on this. Let me build this first. And then it's all tree based, and, you know, it knows how to resolve all of that. So when you talk about building a ton of pieces of software, and then you're like, okay, this has to run before this, Nix solves all of that.
Beautiful.
So you could just have it build a ton of things, and then you just do Nix build, and it will build anything in that dependency tree. Cool. Okay. So the next thing is, this is kind of like Haskell-y. It's got let in, right?
Yeah.
So you have the ability to define values within the scope of the things that you're trying to work with. And after the in, as long as you're returning what it expects, then you can do this anywhere, right? So we put this here just to make it so it's kind of like user friendly and very available to you.
Right.
And the thing to note here is that, you'll see that we're purposely throwing this error so that you change it to the username on your system.
Yeah.
So that's what you'll want to do.
So this needs to be my like current like user, right?
Your actual current user. Yeah.
So that is me. And then
Perfect.
do I need anything after this, or is it
Yeah.
just like that?
So the language, it's Terminator as a semicolon.
Semicolon.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's you'll get used to where really it is used, but it's pretty much everywhere really. It's used within attribute sets or even out of it. So again, it's kind of OCaml-y in that way. It's used in a lot of places. Okay, cool. So let's look down a little bit further, and let's just talk about the last little bit here. So we updated the username, which was just a basic variable.
Yeah.
But I told you that I wanted the flake to also describe like what the Nix experience would feel like from like a modular perspective. Like, how do I have multiple files? How do I import those files and things like that? And so the real takeaway from the other part of the in is that we're importing a reusable module that you can build various different variations of a Darwin system with.
Okay.
Right. So think about that kind of being like a Docker file with dynamic inputs, where, you know, if I was like, I want to build this for this user, then here's this username. If I want to build it for this architecture, here's this architecture. Right. And so we've abstracted the actual Nix functional logic part, or the definition, into its own function, so that I could say like, well, I just want to build a Darwin system for Arch, or ARM, right? Or I want to build a Darwin system for Intel, right? And that's where we come down to the next part, which is the Darwin configuration side. Now, this is specific to flakes, but this is what makes it so that flakes can actually configure your system. This is a special, like, actual value in the flake definition. And if you are curious about like the whole flake definition, Nix flake, let me see if I can find it for you. Yeah, here you go. I'll paste it in chat. There you go. So that's the real like flakes main page, where it kind of talks about and shows you everything in a flake and what you can use. So if you scroll down, you'll see like a big code block. And it shows you everything that you could do. Now, we're just touching the surface of a dev environment with Nix.
Right.
However, there's a bunch of other keys and settings essentially that you would use to achieve what you want. We're just doing Darwin configurations because we're talking about a dev environment. But if it was software, it would go in like programs. And if it was something you wanted to execute from the flake, it'd go in like apps and other things like that. So again, it's a good thing to just kind of look at. But for now, just note that this flake is primarily focused on managing a system. And so because it manages a system, it only exposes the Darwin configurations. Okay, cool. So,
That makes sense. I have one quick question, and this is
Mhm.
probably what you and Dylan were talking about some, but like this Darwin here,
mhm.
like that is this Darwin here,
Yep.
and this home
Yep.
manager is this home manager,
Yep.
and this Nix packages. So this is what you're talking about. Like I could rename Nix packages here,
Yep.
but just the top level, right?
Mhm.
And then I could rename it here, and everything
Yep.
would be fine.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So okay. So the last kind of little bit here is inside of Darwin configurations. These are what are called profiles, right? These are the profiles of the builds that you want to build. So you'll remember, or if you do remember, when you were going to run the command, it had like dot pound and then like x86 64, and that was all you needed. That's because just like the inputs, these profiles are also defined as whatever you want, right? So even though the actual system name is, AAR, 64-Darwin, I can just say, well, I just want the profile to be named, AAR 64. I don't care about the Darwin part, and it makes it a little easier to work with. But that definition is what you target when you run the CLI tool. Right, that's what you're telling the flake, or that's what you're telling Nix what you want to build in the flake. And so this is where we then lean back on the functional programming, and we say like, okay, well, Darwin system's a function, and the only parameter I pass to it is the system type, right? Everything else underneath the hood will get the same username. It'll get all the same packages, and so like this right here, guys, is already an exact example of now having a system dev environment that works on both ARM and Intel.
Yep, that's super cool.
So yeah, and again, it's that functional programming that really makes this so powerful.
Would this be an okay time to like open
Yes. Any of the other files?
Yeah, like I want to now open, since we use Darwin Nix, like let's open Darwin Nix and see what we have. So we have inherit, like I noticed in the other file it said inherit inputs username in curly braces next to this. And I'm guessing that's both like, so this is the inputs of our flake.nix. And then this is the username that we defined in our let-in, correct? Okay.
Yep. So how OCaml has, and I just learned this, partial definitions, I think is what it's called, like partial applying
like
or whatever. Yeah. It's the same thing here, where if you go back to the main flake, I can actually explain it to you very quickly.
Sure.
So
I think I see what's happening here. I was going to ask about the syntax in this file because it looks like, I assume we have like this initial function that takes two arguments, inputs and username, and it looks like it would probably return a function that takes a system. Yep.
Exactly. And so take that concept and then talk about every definition in your software, right? I want to build OCaml with just this version, or with just this architecture, with just these inputs, that's how Nix is able to rebuild OCaml in like 5 different ways and support it all out of the box. They're just parameters. The actual definition itself exists in that functional code. So yeah, exactly. We're importing it. That becomes an evaluated function, right? And then we're telling it, okay, now pass in the inherited, set, which has that first pass. And then we say like, okay, well, we want to reuse it now many times. So then we apply it over and over and over again with just the system. Yeah.
This is like clicking for me right now.
That makes sense.
Very cool.
So yeah, go ahead and go back to the Darwin file whenever you're ready.
This is like just a space separated list of inherits. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. I mean, that's what I said before. I just want to make sure that I'm right.
It must match. That's the other thing to note. If you inherit something, that key must match the key that you're then exporting here, basically.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically this file in Nix then, which is basically what you just said, but I'm just going to repeat it in my own words.
Sure.
It's just like school. Yeah, and so basically this takes 2 arguments, and that's why they have colons after them, you could say.
Yep.
And the first argument is this set of inputs and username. The second
Yep.
argument is the system, and system is again the Arch 64 or x86, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can keep going. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And so because now I'm like, okay, well, I'd like to kind of abstract this even more, where I'm like, all right, I want my system config separated from my home manager config. This is where we then say, okay, well, let's make a let's import those, and we'll evaluate those, the same way we just evaluated the other Nix or the Darwin function, right? So this is me trying to also show you guys encapsulation, like good encapsulation of what you're trying to accomplish and how you can really do this in a way that does make sense. Now, here's like my only little feedback for a lot of the like hardcore Nix users out there. They are so big into functional that it's really hard to sometimes take away what somebody's doing in a repo because it's just so massively abstracted. It can. It's a functional-esque language, so you can get like as abstract as you want with this. But my goal here was to kind of just show you how I solve it with files that solve problems for me. And so system config is where the Nix Darwin stuff is, and then home manager is where the home manager stuff is.
Got it.
Underneath that, right, underneath that let in, here's, again, what's another really cool part. Because we have an input of Darwin and Nix packages and these other things, we can use their code to build our own system, right? So it's not just about sharing build artifacts with Nix, but it's even about sharing your literal Nix code with other people in Nix, right? And a good, like, super high level example of this is I think it was Dylan, you mentioned about like moving from like one company to another and stuff like that. Well, I solved for that by taking this function, exposing it in my flake, and then making another flake on my personal machine that just uses my flake as an input and reuses the same function to build on my work machine. But then I pass it like a unique username, a unique, whatever else. And then if I update my primary flake, I just do Nix flake update, and then my dev environment on my machine's updated. So I'm even able to have that portability with the code. And so that's what we're doing is we're saying, hey, I want to get from the Darwin library the Darwin system function, which enables me to pass a set. So this is really just a set at the end of the day of attributes.
Yeah.
And if I do that, it will return me a build definition for Darwin. And when we take a step back for a second and think about that, this is where, even on a Mac, and we do this in Kickstart, by the way. In Kickstart, every template, even Mac OS, is built and tested. We don't activate it, like we don't actually use it, but because the definition's here, the configuration's here, I can easily build this somewhere else just to check it, right? And so that's what becomes really powerful about this is if you're like, all right, I want to build everything in CI, but maybe it's a desktop system, maybe it's like an actual dev environment. It can do that because it has these definitions. And so Darwin system in this case is a function that takes an attribute set with like a bunch of values, and it inherits the system, so you know what OS or what architecture you're building for, and then it says like, okay, give me modules, right? And modules is really where we say like, all right, here's this reusable code. However, what's really cool about this is you can merge basically whenever Nix evaluates any of the stuff, even if it's, like you'll notice home manager's got like home manager.use global packages, home manager.user packages, right? What it's going to do is before it tries building, it's going to evaluate everything, and then it's going to squish it all together so that it's all in the actual structure that it's supposed to be in. So say, for example, I have a system config that I actually want to share between two different systems, but there's like just specific things I want to override very easily and make it so that just that one system has these features. Well, with this approach, what I'm doing is I'm saying like, okay, well, just in an attribute set by itself, define that the daemon is enabled and that my user home is set to the username. And the reason why I do this is so that I don't have to pass it further down into like a function if I want to use it somewhere else, right? I can have Nix inherit what I want it to, but then have like these dynamic variables high level. And so that's what I'm doing here is I'm saying like, okay, system config is just a module that you'll notice it has no parameters. I can just drag and drop it into any other Darwin system config that I want. But the part above it where it's like the specific username, the daemon, all of that, that will be unique to my system.
I see.
So we've got, yeah.
Quick question on the inheritance line or on the inherit line.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is system, does that end up being a string passed in? If I remember correctly. So when we say inherit, so we're inheriting on a string. What does that do? So like inherit must be like a function or like a macro or something that takes that as an argument.
So yeah, so inherit will take the attribute system and it will inject it into whatever you're trying with the key system and then whatever the value is. So it's a way of just passing something down and not having to declare both the key and the value.
Okay.
Like if the value is supposed to be the same, then you can just inherit it and then system will become that value. So it's like syntactical sugar. Yeah.
So that's basically just saying like, hey, inside this inputs.darwin.lib.darwin system is going to equal whichever architecture we chose when we created our switch.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So system is still defined as just that string that we defined.
At the top level. Yeah. It's that parameter that gets passed down, but its key will be system.
Its key is system, right? But it's still just that string. Okay.
It's almost like spreading ish.
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Yeah. It just makes it so you don't have to do the value with it. It'll do the key value for you. Yeah.
Cool.
That makes sense. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm getting there. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We're good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say this, there's like controversy even around that, where some people are like, you shouldn't use inherit because you don't know what the actual value is, or you know.
Sure.
I don't know. It's up to you. I chose, again, you're seeing a multitude of things here just to get in a feel of what all you can do with it. You know, it's really up to you.
If you didn't want to use inherit, you would literally just say like system equals system.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah. I mean, it's like let's see, like in Rust and in JS, I was hoping abbreviating it would like not make my chest tighten, and it still did. It still did, even abbreviated. Anyway, in Rust, you know, like you can just put yeah, I know, right? You can just put like the name of the thing in when you're creating a struct, right? Like you don't have to. So if you have a function and you're creating a struct, you can just say the name and say insane name and value, like key and value. So it's the same idea there. And that's what it's most like from my background anyway.
Yep. Okay. So another thing to note is if you want to, you can also look at like, you know, Darwin system and, you know, documentation for all of the options here. But if you try and just use everything as a module, then that's really all you need, right? It's kind of almost like MVC, where you have like a controller, right? That you're just dropping all of your dependencies into this DI or this dependency injection, and then it just loads it and, you know, builds it for you. Like I said, we do some uniqueness at the top. We do complete reusability with system config. And then in the next one, this is where Home Manager actually comes into play, right? So up until now, we've not even touched Home Manager yet, right? Now what we're doing is we're telling the system, hey, we also want you to install Home Manager, and we want you to configure it based off of this configuration. You can have, so say for example, if you had multiple users on your system, then you would just pass in multiple usernames, right? And so you'll notice that what we're doing is we're saying, okay, well, we need the Darwin module home manager because it's on Darwin. We need that function. We're going to pass it another set, attribute set. And in this attribute set, it'll have like use global packages, use user packages. And the important one, which also kind of shows you how string interpolation works, right? It shows you how you can set a user and a username and then pass the function that is the configuration for home manager. So if I wanted every user on the system to same
so like
name
on
config,
my system, this basically evaluates to home manager.users.me equals home manager config. Okay. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And like what we're telling home managers is we're telling home manager that this is the user we want you to manage. And this is why it's important to set that right. Because it'll try creating the user for you if it doesn't exist.
We'll find out if I said it right. I've used this user on every system that I've had for probably 15 years. So let's hope that I actually remembered it correctly.
Okay, good.
It's pretty hard to remember. It is 2 letters, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, cool. So we'll look at 2 other things really quickly, and then we'll actually do the applying. So let's look at system config in the module directory.
Module.
Oh yeah, configuration. Sorry. Yeah. So you know how you had a Darwin dash configuration? This is that.
Okay.
So this is where you can remember how in the Darwin configuration it had like ZSH enable, it had like the packages and stuff like that. This is the system level configuration for what's it called? Nix Darwin, right?
Okay.
So anything that Nix Darwin could use would be in here. But this is global, right? This is completely global for the whole system. So if you enable ZSH, you're enabling it everywhere, right? So the takeaway here is I think, what you put in here is really the absolute most global values that you need.
Okay.
You want shell everywhere. Okay, ZSH at this level does make sense. You don't have to, because even home manager can give you the shell that you want, right? But in this case, if you wanted it just everywhere, you could do it here instead, and a bunch of other stuff. But the thing I do kind of want to share with you guys that we do include is we include binary cache setup for you, and that's what all this other stuff is some nice helpful features to make sure that like flakes are enabled, that you're downloading binary cache, that your trusted users are like sudo, and it even includes an auto optimized store. So it'll make sure that like it's cleaning the store for you. It's trying to not just destroy your whole disk, with space. So cool. So that's for Nix Darwin specific configuration. So let's go to the other one now, which is the home manager one.
Who is this trusted user that we've added here?
That's the wheel group. Yeah.
The wheel group. Okay.
Yeah.
Just thought I should ask.
Yep. No, it's all good. Yeah,
All right.
That's the wheel group for Mac.
Got it. Okay.
I'm a big
then we
fan
wanna
of this
open
next
the other
file.
module.
Yeah. So this is really where you start to dig deep into your development environment. This is your home manager file. Now right now
What is this? What is this doing on my system? This was the whole plan, wasn't it, Dylan?
Yeah, actually, Meta, this would be a good time to break it to you. This was actually a planned intervention from the rest of Tech Twitch to get you off of Emacs and onto NeoVim. So welcome to your intervention.
Oh shit! How many interventions can one person go through in a lifetime?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It's up to you. If you want to update the template, feel free. But no, it's okay. Yeah. So yeah, this is home manager, and this is really where all of your user configuration would go moving forward. Now, home manager does have a really nice option search as well. And this is like, we're not going to go super deep into Home Manager because there's just so much you can do. But I will give you an idea of like how it works at least, and how, we can, at least within the next probably like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I do have to rate it 5. Sorry. So I do.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
worries.
Hell yeah.
But yeah. So, that's the Home Manager. So if you just type in Vim, for example, you'll see every Vim option that you can do with Home Manager.
In the search, right?
Yeah,
I was
in the
like,
search, yeah.
I thought you meant in this file, and I'm like, that's not. I understand how this works, and that's not going to do anything for me. But I
No,
can do
yeah.
it if that's what you
that
want me to
won't
do.
work, yeah.
All
Oh, this is so nice.
Why don't we share this, because this seems cool.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. It's probably what you guys told me to do like a while ago, and I just was being dumb.
Oh,
Okay,
hold on.
so Home Manager option search.
Yep. So
And we
in
just
your
type
case,
in Vim.
if you look
and-
down, you'll see that it says programs.vim enable at the bottom.
Okay, cool. Whether to enable Vim. Okay.
Yep.
Got
So if
it.
you were to type in search programs.vim,
Yeah. Programs.vim. Okay.
there you go. Now that is at least Vim, and maybe there might be some NeoVim showing up there, but
Yeah.
every Vim option that you have.
Got it. Okay. And then what if I do this?
Yep.
Okay.
That's
We
there
have
too.
enable Emacs. Okay. Good
Yep.
deal. We're
Yep.
so happy.
Yeah.
All right.
We can do that.
And
Don't worry.
we've got Tmux. Okay.
Yep.
Neat.
Tmux is
Neat.
there. Yep.
All right. Okay. Wow. This is a lot.
It's got Starship.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, wow. All right.
Meta's mind
There it
is.
is.
melting
There's
right
the
now.
click. There's the click. Yep.
I didn't expect it to work like this. Like I thought like, oh, maybe we just like we have all our extra config files and then we still have to kind of, like bind them all together. Hopefully through a series of make files, ideally.
Right.
And then, we would finally be here. But no, this is it's pretty good. Okay.
Yep. And this is where the language part of it really shines, because that's what you're using. You're just using the definitions that other developers have come in and, wanted and then complained about and then fixed and then gone back and fixed again. This is literally all of this is developer work, open source work.
So looking at Tmux here, right, I see things like setting my prefix key. Is it possible for me to keep my configuration in like the native configuration files and like, I guess what is the convention like, right? Especially for NeoVim, right? Like I have a very extensive like self-written out config, like tons of custom Lua. Like how is the convention to move that into Nixlang, or can I continue to use my Lua files? Same with Tmux.
So are you ready for me to blow your mind?
I've never been more ready.
Okay. So Nix can build anything. Means it can also build NeoVim plugins. Meaning that you can keep it in Lua if you want, have Nix build your config as a plugin, and then just require your plugin name in Lua. That's it. Yeah.
So does that mean that
that's exactly what I do.
Okay. So you've translated all your custom plugins to this this Nix language to build into a plugin.
Nope. I
I've
haven't.
got this backward.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to take a look at this. Or I'm still
So
a little confused here. So like.
So here, let me show you.
Yeah.
Let me share my dot files really quickly, and I'll show an exact specific line here, because this is where we're kind of going probably into what we would really get into more next stream, which is like how you would move NeoVim and all of this other stuff to it. But if you go to MetaMe, if you don't mind going to the link that I shared in chat.
Things. I'm good at
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm somewhat good at it. I'm still struggling, but we're almost there. All right.
Yep. So you're going to notice that in my flake, I have more than just the Darwin configs and the NixOS configs. I have like per system and then like dev shells and packages. The takeaway here is this is the software part, right? You guys are really only using the NixOS configuration part, but this is where like you actually build software, right? So for example, Nix didn't have the nerd font of Geist Mono, so I made it something that others could use, and I build it myself. And I do the exact same thing with my Lua configuration, where Nix, you'll notice, has a packages.buildmutools.buildvim plugin.
Yep.
And then I can just tell it, well, here's all my Lua as the source, build this into a plugin for me, and then make it exposed as the Alt F4 stream. And so then when I go into like the actual config, and here's the second part to it, which I'll see if I can find it really quickly. Like then you're like, okay, well then how do you use it in Nix? Shared home manager. 1 second. Right here. This is the second part. There you go.
All right.
So again, we're using that like programs.enable setting, right, in home manager. And if I don't know why I didn't scroll down to
It's still loading. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So if you scroll up just a little bit, right? Keep going just a little bit more, keep going until you see plugins by itself. There you go.
Okay.
Plugins right there. So you'll see I have program.neovim enable. Great. Easy. Done. What are my plugins? Guess what? I don't have to use LazyVim or anything. I don't have to use any of it. Why? I can use Nix. Nix has every plugin that I would potentially want, and if not, I can build it myself. And so I do both. I'm telling Nix, hey, give me NeoVim, enable it, right? Here's my plugins. You install my plugins. You inject it into NeoVim for me. There's my entire list. And then at the very bottom, there's my definition. And remember how I said inputs allows you to go back up to the top, right? So now I can say, all right, well, even in my flake, use my self packages for the given system because Nix does multi-arc always. So you can't just tell it like, hey, I want to build for the one thing. If you do, it'll always build for just that system. But if we pass the system as a dynamic variable, then my NeoVim package now is even supported on ARM and i86-64 and everything else, right? And then you'll see at the line 235, that's technically the only thing I need for my config.
Got it. I see what's happening here.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's what's really cool about that. Now, my NeoVim config is also usable as a plugin in other people's NeoVim environments.
Yeah, that's wild.
Just giving you all the secrets. This is stuff genuinely I personally am really passionate about, and like I want to like eventually when I finish it get videos out on this part too, because like this is really where again you don't need like half of the Lua that you would need to configure Vim just goes away. And it's really like if you go and you look at my configs, it's just me wrapping, very small functions of like, setup, for everything. And yeah. Now there is another project that exists. It's called Nix Vim. And we actually have one of the maintainers who work on it in our community. Nix Vim aims to go even beyond this and try and describe every definition and configuration in NeoVim in the actual Nix language, which means you wouldn't use Lua at all. You would set up your LSPs and do all that stuff with Nix Vim. And that's up to you. I like the Lua approach personally because I think it's more compatible and like it's just easier to deal with like backwards compatibility and stuff like that. But it is worth giving a shout out that you could technically do all of this with Nix Vim as well. Yeah. Well, maybe not all of it, but whatever it supports. And I actually have a video on YouTube about this too, where I talk about like why I choose the way I choose to do it versus, using Nix Vim.
Neat.
But yeah, that's a decent introduction to Home Manager. So let's do this really quickly. Is there anything you want to add to your Home Manager right now that you feel like you might want? Now, here's the thing. If you already have Emacs and all that other stuff, it's probably not worth overriding yet until you're ready.
Right. So it's
Right.
actually kind of works out that NeoVim's in here. We'll just do it. We'll get the mind virus
Yeah.
installed
Nice.
on the system. I don't think that works.
It worked,
because
chat.
it's a literal program, but that's
Yep.
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's just see if we can.
Yeah, the last part of Kickstart is really just switching, you know.
Right.
Now here's the fun part. Or actually, we'll talk about it after we do this. Yeah. So
Okay. So here we are. We read this. Oh, I just had a question. What is this state version?
that's
thing.
specific to Home Manager. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's so that you're on the right version of Home Manager that matches the Nix version you're using.
So it's defining it's versioning basically for Home Manager. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Got it. So we're back here.
Yep. Okay.
And-
So then we can run that switch command now.
All
basically.
right. So we have that in our history, and I'll just press up, and then except we want this to be switch.
Yep.
Okay.
Now here's the thing: if you were to be like, "Hey, I want to test it," you could still run check, right? But it should work. it should work. It should work.
Oh,
It worked on the last build.
I didn't stage my username, right?
That's fine. Well, because you first added everything, it changes
knows
don't
that
need to be
file
staged.
exists,
Yeah,
right?
as long as the file exists. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you look here, you'll notice that it's going out, it's getting like ZSH, it's downloading other things, it's going through. Basically, this part is what do I need to download? And what do I need to build? So green means what it's built, blue means what it's building, and 62 means how many it needs to build. But look at one thing I really want you to look at here.
People? I guess it is green to other people. Okay.
One thing I want you to note really quick is look at the size on the left versus the size on the right in the downloads. What that is compression at its finest. So you're technically only downloading 231 megabytes, but it's simultaneously decompressing all of that into where it needs to go and what it is. So
Got it.
that's really nice about Nix as well, is it tries to be as lightweight as possible. This sometimes takes a second. There we go. Okay, now you'll notice it gives us a whole bunch of output, right? Whatever. And then you'll see creating profile generation 1.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you ran that again, just like you asked, it would in fact be exactly the same and it wouldn't do anything. Yeah, you can run it again. You shouldn't be prompt for, yeah. There you go. No changes to reusing.
Item potency, friends. Item potency. Okay, cool.
Immutable item potency. Like, you know,
even,
it's just,
even better. This is true.
yeah.
Because I mean, Docker's item potent as well, right? But like, yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, no, you're exactly.
Unless something random upstream changed, that could be literally effing anything.
Anything.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So awesome. So you're like, congrats. You're really there. Like you have now fully
So good at
kickstarted
this.
your environment with
But I don't
Nix.
have NeoVim. So,
I
so
think it's just NVim.
Is it NVim? Okay.
Restart your shell.
Come on.
Well, because this is the first time you've applied the flake, right?
I just can't believe that I have to restart my shell. This is unbelievable.
We've made it. We are in the cult of Nix.
I know, right? Okay. Alacrity. Here we go. It loves to not be the right window size because I'm too lazy to configure it. Shockingly. Okay.
Well, now
so
you should have NVim.
Now we can go to. Can't believe this is happening on Dylan's stream and everything. This is unbelievable.
We've done it. After
There it
months
is.
of effort. After months of effort, we've done it.
There you go.
Unbelievable. Okay.
Welcome. Welcome, Meta.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus.
Welcome both of you to the Nix, the world of Nix.
I'm very excited.
Right. That doesn't work.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, at this point, like, if we kind of really quickly go over everything we just did.
Yeah,
Right.
totally. Good idea.
We first went out to the NixOS website, got the installer, and installed the CLI, right? That's the package manager. The language itself, obviously, it's just a language. You're just going to write in it. But the package manager, you need to evaluate the language, right?
Yep.
Once you download the package manager, then you say, okay, well, I'm not on NixOS, so I need Darwin, Nix Darwin, so that it integrates into my system, right? That's where we get the system controls and all of that. The next thing we say is we say, okay, now that we've got Nix Darwin installed and we've enabled flakes and Nix commands, now let's create our own flake, right? Describe our build for our system, for home manager, for all of that. And then let's switch into that flake. So now going forward, if you want to make changes, you would run the same Darwin check, Darwin switch, Darwin check, Darwin switch. And that's your whole development experience now, at least for your env, right?
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
really
And like
dope.
at this point, you can easily just jump into home manager, start messing with things. Again,
Yeah.
it's just like programs enable for pretty much everything. And yeah, like this should be a good starting point, at least for what would be next, which is, okay, now how do I make a ton of flakes and have specific flakes for specific projects as well, which we'll end up doing next stream.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us, BG. I super appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Your content is amazing. Everyone follow the Alt F4 stream and check out his YouTube content.
Thank you.
Yeah. Meta, also, I guess, thank you for joining us and driving.
Yeah, whatever. Who knows?
I'm very thrilled to have you one step closer to being on NeoVim.
Woo!
Look at those.
Sheesh!
And
Popping
snubbies.
off.
Ninja.
Thank you,
coming in.
Ninja. Y'all should also follow Ninja.
Oh no.
Pick,
Pick's
I don't
trying
know.
to get you to break your system.
Pick, I know that you're taking a break from Twitter right now, but I was actually reading some Haskell documentation this weekend on monoids and the like.
He's not wrong.
So before I bounce, is there any questions you guys have or anything like that I can try and leave you with?
I think I've followed this super, this was really easy. This Kickstart project is amazing. The effort
It's neat. It's
you
very
put
smooth.
into this is, it's clear you've put a lot of thought and passion into this. And it, I feel like it was a great experience as someone who hasn't touched Nix before. So thank you for your
make me
passion, your
blush.
effort in this project. And I'm looking
Thank
forward
you,
to diving in more.
Yeah,
Sweet.
sweet. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Next week we'll be dealing with languages.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
That'll be a lot of fun.
Yep.
All right, y'all. I'm going to find someone for us to raid because I'm going to get off and go eat some dinner and prep for an interview tomorrow. And
Exciting.
yeah.
Nice.
Matt, are you going to stream or you're going to play WoW? Are you going to be streaming after this, Meta?
No, I'm going to go to bed very soon.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
that's
late for
right.
you guys. It's late.
Over there in your nursing home, they're probably getting ready to wheel you out of the common area and
That's
get
how
you
it
to bed.
goes. That's how it goes.
Nice.
We'll raid. Who's on? Anyone have a preference? We got a Whimsy World. Oh, I do see that they're doing some Nick stuff. That makes perfect sense that we would raid them.
Yeah,
There you
sounds
go.
good. Let's do it.
All right, let's let me go find my raid thing. Alrighty, y'all. Thank you so much. Super appreciate everybody. And
Thank you,
I'll be
guys.
back tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Eastern time streaming some Gleam, actually, instead of OCaml for once.
Wow.
Nice.
I know.
Tune into that.
Alrighty. See you guys. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
See you guys.
See ya.
Peace.
And we can wrap that up.
Functions describe the
And there we go.
world.
We should have rated.
Raid has gone.